Thank you so much for joining us on Let the Healing Begin podcast. I'm your host, Asia. And today we have Ken Stearns joining us. How are you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great, Asia. Thanks for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much for joining us. So whereabouts are you from, Ken?
Yeah, I kind of say in my bio, I'm a well-seasoned Midwestern kid. So I'm, kind of means I'm an older guy from Chicago area, and I've got those Midwestern. I kind of like to think I have those Midwestern values.
Okay. So um before I dive into your life. So when you say like say if there's someone that's listening that doesn't necessarily understand what Midwestern values may mean, what is that to you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means that breadbasket thing, that kind of, the I think when you wake up early in the morning, you're doing chores before school. It's that farm country stuff, right? It's that middle of the country, the flyover states where all the work is done, where the farming happens, where all the food comes from.
Okay.
It's that wake up early, do some work, wake up early, do some work, go to school, come home, do some work, you know, and Saturdays and Sundays are working the land and, taking care of business and trying to make a better life for your family.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, yeah.
So let's take it back to your childhood. What was it like growing up for you?
Yeah, good fun. I was the youngest of six, and just had really lucky to grow up in the 60s and 70s as a kid, because that was the, I'm not even sure we had locks on the doors, but I don't know if we could find the key. We definitely could never lock the back door. That was definitely not ever happening. Door was
Yeah.
not going to be. I mean, we can close it, but I don't think you could lock on a daily. Well deserved, I'm sure, quite often. But that's just the way it is in a childhood like that. But yeah, and sisters get along good. I had one sister that was Downs. My third, the one middle sister was a Downs sister. She ended up in hands of the state. Too much care required for being at home. And then my older sisters grew up. I just visited with my older sister. She's about 8 years older than me, and we had some really interesting conversations around our perception of life in the house
Mm-hmm.
and what mom was like. What kind of a parent was mom like? What kind of a parent was dad like? And it's very interesting because she had a different father than I did. It was 8 years later and two boys later. It just where like I think raising two boys probably just knocks the heck out of your ability to be a parent for very long. And so by the time I came around, it was just it was whatever rules, as long as I didn't kill myself. You could do whatever you wanted. So it's
Right.
great fun and good dynamics. Still good friends with my brothers and sisters.
That's good.
Say anyway, when I say
So I know you mentioned that you had a sister that was moved over into
Downs, yeah, Downs, yeah.
at what age was she shifted out of the home?
Really young before I was born. I think it was quite apparent. I think like a normal baby is okay, but I think once they're around one or two, I think she was about two at the time when she was awarded. We were taken by the state, kind of awarded to the state because the care is, it's a 24-hour care. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to do inside a house with five other kids. It was a difficult decision, obviously a difficult decision for my mom. I don't know how heavy that was for her over the years. It would be an interesting thing. I wish I could have. I think I now know more. I have more respect for the decision and more empathy for her. I would like to have that conversation, but she's gone, so it's too late. But it's
Yeah,
an interesting one.
absolutely. So what was it like while you were like in grade school? Did you play any sports or anything like that?
Yeah, I went to the parochial school, so I went to that, the good Catholic school. Mom was a serious Catholic, and out of respect for mom, I jumped into being an altar boy. So in the Catholic Church, when you have a mass, there's a couple of they train now boys and girls to kind of assist the priest up on the altar. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of shenanigans, and in grade schools like that, those Catholic boys are naughty, up to no good, and but we played a lot of sports. My dad had three boys. He was no dummy. It was baseball, basketball, football, gymnastics. I
Yeah.
think from the time I was at age 6, I was in every sport. Pretty much, I was in a sport every week. There was no break.
Wow. Did you have a favorite?
Never I liked baseball a lot. I liked football at the end the most,
Okay.
but I was just too small to in for high school. I didn't get my growth spurt till college.
Yeah.
So I was not a high school football. It was a bummer, but I love the camaraderie and the strategy and the execution, the practice and
Hmm.
winning. Winning.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like winning?
Right. So, how old were you when you graduated high school?
18.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
go to college or what did you do after that?
Yeah, yeah, straight to college. So I did barely I think I woke up around November my senior year and realized that all these people were applying to colleges, and I was just kind of that goofy last kid. And I didn't have to make any decisions in my life ever. I
Yeah.
just followed. People told me where to go, and I just followed along. And by the time I feel like everybody forgot me. And all of a sudden I realized I had to make that first. I was a little bit behind the 8 ball. So anyway, I got into college. I went down to South Carolina from Chicago, and I picked South Carolina for 5 reasons. Drinking age was still 18 at the time. It was cheap. They let me in. The weather was warm,
Mm-hmm.
and all the girls called me Kenny. And I heard that, and I was like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah. Aw. So, what did you decide to study?
Accounting. It was
Okay.
the it was long time ago. It was a strong recession, and it was Jimmy Carter was president. Strong recession, and the only people getting jobs that I could see on my hallway were the accountants. All anybody in the business school, everybody in business school was unemployed except the accountants. And the only other people getting jobs, well, the doctors, the pre-meds were all going to school, but the lawyers all got jobs and the accountants got jobs. And I thought, why? Well, I'm not that stupid. I was gonna just get into accounting. And
Yeah.
I got into accounting. I made it all the way through and ended up and moved to California when I graduated and started a life out there.
Okay. And which part of Cali did you choose?
SoCal.
Okay.
SoCal. I settled into Long Beach. So I
Okay.
met my wife. Yeah, met my wife there. Started a family there. All that good stuff.
So, what was the driving force? Like, what made you go to Cali?
Yeah, so I graduated and I was in a master's program, and my sister was living in Huntington Beach, and she called me up and said, "Nobody ever goes to college to grad school where they went to undergrad. First off, shouldn't do that. Second off, come out here to California and spend a couple weeks. You graduated. Good job. Come on out." So I made my way out there. And about the second day, I called my friend in Columbia, South Carolina. And I said, "I'm getting an 18-foot U-Haul and I'm moving to California. Do I need an 18 or a 22?" He called me back a few days later and said, "Get the 22. I'm coming with you."
Oh, so you had a roommate when you moved out there? You guys lived
Yeah,
together?
yeah, he was my roommate in college for a couple of years, best friend, and he's still in Long Beach, but got married, got a house, get 2 kids, so he's I think he's quite happy he followed along.
That's
Quite happy
amazing.
he followed along. Yeah.
So, where'd you meet your wife at? How'd you guys meet?
She was bent over the dryer in the laundry room, candy striped pants.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
it. That was
Really?
that was it.
Wow. That's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, that's a vision, right? Yeah, we got married, had and I have 2 daughters out of that marriage. It's really great. We're divorced now,
Mm.
but it's a great. Well, I lived married 25 years. Great time. Absolutely
Okay.
great. Great woman.
Let me ask you this. With you guys being married so long, and then
Hmm.
divorcing after all that time, was it really hard for you, or did it take a major toll on you, like emotionally, mentally, that type of thing?
I think divorce is serious. I don't, I can't say for 5-year marriage or maybe for everybody else, but for me, divorce was serious. Um, I think you can see it if you're married 25 years, it's a bit of a slow train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can have your doubts, and then there's some signs, and then there is that self-fulfilling prophecy part where you're upset, you're not happy with the way things are going, and then you'll see things that make your case better. And I
Yeah.
think that happens with both parties on both sides, right? As you kind of grow a little distant through time, or through ideas around raising kids. Could be any number of things that happen, and you grow apart, not together. And I think when you're, two different people have their own projection in life, and they're moving that, and marriage, pulls you together, right? That attraction and that love, and then kids and so many things can pull you together. But there's also a lot of pressures that that are reflecting against you, right? There's also those pressures which where opportunities come between you, right, and create space. And I think that's what happens to a lot of couples. Certainly, probably what happened to my wife and I. Things, like I said, things you become unhappy with, and then you validate that through over time, and eventually gets to a place where it seems like the natural thing, like getting married, the natural thing is getting unmarried, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what it was for us. And we're good friends today. She's remarried. She's very happy. Got a good husband, great guy, and we're friends.
And that's really good. Well, first, let me ask: was it hard for you guys to work your way into that space of being friends, or did it just come natural?
Just time,
That's
just
good.
time, and for sure, her having a partner.
Yeah. But it's good that you guys are in that space, and not
Yeah,
a lot of people can do that. A lot of people, like, when it comes to divorce, because I'm divorced too, and not to glorify divorce or anything like that, but
yeah,
a lot of people can't make amends with, their ex-spouse after the fact. A lot of times it's a
tough.
sticky situation. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of personal stuff, a lot of emotional stuff. There's a lot of stuff going around. Even could be baggage from your family. That all these things get stirred up.
Mhm.
You have to focus on the future, right? What is it going to look like in 25? What do you want it to look like in 25 years? Do you want it to be where on Sunday afternoon you get to come visit the grandkids for dinner, but your wife and her partner is there for breakfast because you two can't be in the same room?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go to or do you want to go to the barbecue all together on a Thursday, on a Sunday afternoon together, like real humans, and just recognize that you guys created these beautiful kids, and that was your job in life,
Hmm.
and now you've got some different jobs,
Yep.
and hang out together. You got
Yep.
grandkids. You're going to have grandkids together. You want to be around as much as you can. You don't want to be discounted because you can't get along with somebody. How dumb is that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So once you got divorced, what did life look like for you then? Like, what did you decide to do?
Well, it was interesting. So I had moved, kind of a little, a side note. Um, After about 20 years in LA, I was an insurance guy. I had an insurance career, and I had some interesting background, some skills. And I was recruited to go to Asia, Asia with an ASIA.
Yeah.
So the place Asia. So I found myself and the family in Hong Kong. So when we got divorced, we were overseas, and so my wife came back here to America after a short time, and I was in Hong Kong, and kind of a job where you stay in one country, then you fly to other countries to help.
Okay.
And in this role, as soon as I was divorced, the company was like, "Good, let's send you somewhere." So they sent me to live in Vietnam,
Okay.
and so from 2012, it's about 10 years ago, I moved to Vietnam. Then they moved me to Indonesia. Uh, then I took a job in Thailand. Then I took a job in India. Then I went back to Vietnam, for mostly for during COVID. And then I arrived back in the US last January, a year ago.
Wow. Were those well, which one of those places was your favorite to live in?
Yeah, still Vietnam.
Really?
I mean, different places, different favorites for different things. But if I had to go back and could only, it's a tough call. Vietnam or Thailand. It's a tough call. I liked
Really?
both.
That's
I
good.
liked both.
Was it a big adjustment for you from the US?
I mean, yes. I mean, of course, right? You can't minimize it. There's no, they don't, you don't look. Everything in your life becomes new, right? Nobody speaks the same language. Nobody looks like you. So, you're a minority in every situation. You're working in someone else's country. You're a guest in somebody else's country. The food is crazy. You try to drive, you're on the wrong side of the road. The signs are wacky. It's difficult. There was no internet back then, when I moved, surprisingly. And, it's challenging. And a lot of people do fail at it. They cannot make the cut in a way. They can't thrive. Some
Yeah.
can survive for a couple of years. They can
Hmm.
do the contract. They can do 2 or 3 years, maybe even 5 years, but they don't thrive.
Hmm.
And there is a difference when you change everything in someone's life. New dentist, new doctor, new bank, new phone company, new phone, grocery store changes, your food, whatever you used to eat, guess what? 50% of that's gone. You can't get that. You're going to eat something other. You're going to start eating Asian food. You
Yeah.
like it? Doesn't matter because you're going out for work. You like seafood? Don't really care because here's what you're eating.
Oh,
So not everybody can thrive. And I think I thrived for a while. For most of the years, I really did quite okay.
that's good. What would you say your biggest what was the biggest obstacle for you to overcome, like moving into other countries?
Yeah, as a single, so once I started moving around, the single biggest obstacle, yeah, I don't even think I look at things like that. Like I
Hmm.
don't think I even see obstacles anymore. Is that a weird answer?
No, that's really good. That's really
Yeah,
good.
like I couldn't
That's,
articulate. Yeah, there's no for me. It's not obstacles. It's just like it's what's ever in front of you. It's the next thing you're dealing with, and it's life.
yeah.
It's
And,
life.
and so not everybody, we may have some listeners that don't understand that, that, you know,
Mm.
do see obstacles. Could you give a piece of advice to somebody to kind of help shift their mindsets?
Yeah, I think immediately I go to obstacles being something in front of you you can't see around, right? And it looks impenetrable. It looks impassable, right? An obstacle, and then so you got to take some time to figure out how to dismantle it. Am I going to go around it? Am I going to go over it? And it stops people, right? It literally. So if you, I mean, the obstacle, the word in my mind is, it's there, right? And it's in front of you, and it's how do you, like I said, get around it, go over it, blow it up. What's the strategy? What's the plan?
Yeah,
And I think that for me, I've probably always maintained the vision of what's on the other side of the obstacle. So I never let the obstacle obscure my view. If that's a kind of a technique for someone to use, because what happens is you refocus on the obstacle, and that's when you're dead. I mean, you're done. You've lost, right? As soon as you're focused on the obstacle, and then you start talking about it, ruminating, yeah, whatever that word is. You just kind of, it just keeps going over and over in your mind about it and how you're going to get around it, how it's disrupted your plans and da da da. And all of a sudden now you're not focused on your objectives or the thing you have to do in life. You're focused on the obstacle, and that just absolutely will kill you. And
Mhm.
and so I'd encourage people to not, obstacles are real in the terms of there are things in front of you you have to deal with. Don't lose sight of where you were going and what you were doing and the energy and the momentum you had on the way, and keep that vision of what that thing is. And honestly, the obstacle it'll dissipate. You don't
Absolutely.
have to blow it up. You don't have to dismantle it. It's like
Absolutely.
quantum physics. It's like quantum physics. You will literally walk through it. If anybody knows quantum physics, you got to look that. If you don't know, take 15 minutes later and just get a simple explanation. But literally, you can walk through a wall is the concept. And that's what this technique will do for you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes we do come across, well, I wouldn't even say obstacles. Sometimes they can feel like obstacles, but I believe
Yeah,
that
yeah, it feels like an obstacle.
it depends on a person's mindset. And like you said,
Yes.
they're going to focus on the actual thing that's in front of them or where they're trying to get to and
Yeah.
what's on the other side. You know, the thing that I've learned to be easy is really not to even worry about anything. Do what you can
Yes.
and pray and just keep living, like just keep going, and
Yeah.
things usually like settle themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like you're saying, it's those things of, the things you can control and the things you cannot. And if that, I'll air quote, if that obstacle is something you can't control, you can't really worry about it, right? Just keep focused on what you are doing. What is that thing you're trying to get to? And if that obstacle, you will go straight. If you have an eyeball on that and you don't see you see the obstacle is a change of course direction. That's all it is. It's a note and you've got moment. Asia, one of the things I have a book I'm working on. It's called Ken's Rules, for lack of a better title, and I'm sure I'll come up with something way more clever than Ken's Rules. But one of my rules in life, and the reason I call them Ken's Rules are these are antidotes and things that I've picked up through the years that I find I can apply to so many of my situations in life. And so one of them is called momentum, and it's the rule of momentum, and it's essentially an MC squared thing. It's basically Newton's laws. And here's the way I explain it: if I took a 1972 F-150 Ford truck, so just imagine this old cowboy truck, right?
Mhm.
1950, 1950s cowboy truck with a trailer hitch, and I hooked up an old freight train to it, say 20, 30 cars. I could actually pull that train. I could get it moving. Most people are like, yeah, you probably could with a good 4-wheel drive truck. You could get it going, enough torque and enough pull. Once that train's moving, I can turn that truck around and I can get nose to nose with that moving train. And guess what? That truck's going to be smashed like a Coke can. Momentum is a powerful thing. So obstacles stop your momentum. So just slightly adjust that moment, just a little bit of of an adjustment, because you can't stop that train. You
Mhm.
guys got to slightly steer the momentum in another direction. Keep that momentum going in life.
Absolutely. And then too, like it's a lot of people like when they do have the momentum going, um,
Mm,
sometimes like the obstacles are pretty much like distractions, because then they become disappointed and discouraged
yeah.
when really it's like one thing I've learned is like if I can't do anything about this, then okay, I got a long list of other things to do, so I'm gonna move.
Interesting. Yeah, when you stop and there are times, I think this is a good point, right? There are times when you do get stopped,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes I think naturally you have to recognize that momentum is not with you.
Hmm.
That for whatever reason you're going uphill, train tracks aren't smooth, whatever the reason is, all that effort, you got the thing going, you got stopped. So yeah, you are right. Put that thing away. Put it
Hmm.
on the corner, put it on the shelf for a bit. It's all right. It may not be its time.
Hmm. Because it's like I've come to like to some situations that can be quite frustrating, but
Hmm.
then it takes that self-discipline. Am I going to let this frustrate me to where I want to just quit life
Yeah.
altogether, or am I going to walk away and take a break for a minute and redirect my attention to something else that I can do, and then when I feel a little alleviated, I'll come back to work this thing out, or maybe it's
Hmm.
just time for something new. Maybe I'm trying to put forth effort into something that's just I've outgrown, or is this just not meant for me, at this time.
Oh, this is so funny. I just had this conversation. I was sharing with you. I was with a guest for my podcast,
Hmm.
and he was saying he was talking about how he's going through a 12-step program, and there's a lot of spirituality in that. and he was talking about God and his life. And he said, I've learned when I do things that Mark wants to do on Mark's time, things go bad. When I push it, when it's not working and I push, he goes, it goes badly because it's not. He goes, but when I let God tell me what to do, when I'm following God's like when I'm following his direction, he goes, things just go so much easier. So what you're just saying is kind of like sometimes the stuff we're trying to do because I want to do it, right? And yeah, look, if you can't get that freight train moving with your F-150, and you're spinning the tires and you're shifting the gear and you're like, okay, it's probably go pull another train.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've learned that in my life with trying to do things that interest just me, because sometimes
Yes.
those things are not what's in God's will for us. So now I try to strictly just say, Lord, what do you want me to do? Because when he directs our steps and orders our path, it's smooth like butter, it's so
it's smooth like
smooth.
butter.
It's so smooth, and then you don't have all these stumbling blocks or closed doors. Everything is just like, okay. Sometimes he may test us to see, because testing brings
it's a real thing,
perseverance and stuff, which is fine. But at that time we'll have the tools that we need to pass those tests. But for the most part, everything comes so smoothly, and it's just like, man, when I put my hands on it, I make a mess of stuff.
It's so true.
I really do.
I was dying laughing when he was telling me the story today. I was crying. It was really a funny story. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So with you, what made you come back to the US? Like, did you have the option to stay over in another country, or were you just strictly on work?
Yeah, I was strictly on. I was on work, and I was about 50. I guess it was around 58, and maybe I'll go back a little bit. Because it's intentionality, and I think I want to leave the audience with one thing about being intentional in your life and doing things, announcing things, and making determinations, and planting your flag. And what happens to you when that happens? Like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, goes to work for you, or puts you to work. I'm not quite sure which one it is, actually. I think sometimes I think I was put to work. I thought I was given, but now I'm kind of starting to think maybe it's the other way around. I had some crazy jobs. I had some jobs that were all encompassing. I'd go to bed at probably 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and I'd wake up at 5:30, ready to go. And I was on game. I was a maniac, high performing, super culture corporate guy. And then they moved to a different job. Like, my life changed, and had been an increasingly crazy jobs to this last one. And then this next job was just absolute paradise. Live in Thailand and have almost zero responsibility. And my mind opened up a little bit, and I was home on vacation, and I told my daughter, I said, look, I think I want to play guitar. I want one more try at playing guitar. I want to learn how to play. I want to commit. And I said, I want to buy a nice guitar. I have a bonus check. I got a bonus check in my bank. It's burning a hole in my pocket. And I'm going to buy me a nice guitar. But I'm going to give myself 2 years to play, and I'm going to get lessons. So if I'm going to spend real money on a guitar, I need 2 years before I say I quit. Can't quit before 2 years. And I can't quit without the lessons, right? Because otherwise I'm not trying. And so I made that, kind of made that contract with myself. And I walked into a guitar store in Las Vegas, and I walked around, it's this beautiful room, huge room, guitars 3-4 tall on the walls in the middle. And I'm walking around like a fish in this thing. And after about 20 minutes, I'm realizing I have no idea. I don't even know a left hand from a right hand guitar. This is probably a mistake. And I did notice this one guy kind of moving around and sitting down in different chairs and playing guitars. And all of a sudden I was like this with me and you and I was face to face with him, and he's got a guitar, and he's sitting there, and we're like looking at each other. And I was like, oh, hi. And then I just blurted out, this is me. I'm 50, I'm 52. I was 52 or 53 at the time. I'm like, and I want to play guitar, and I'm going to get lessons, and and I don't know anything. What guitar should I get? I sounded probably like I was 12. And and he just looked at me and he goes, "Get the red one."
Oh.
And I knew he didn't mean the color. I mean, like initially it's the color red, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's great. Not that he's not talking about the red. What is he? What? And so the second look I gave him, he looked at me and goes, the one you can't take your eyes off of from across a crowded room, the one you want to hold and caress, the one you never want to let go of. He gave me great advice. And I was back in Thailand a couple of weeks later. I met my guitar teacher. I Googled, I searched, I found this guy. I just talked to him this morning for an hour.
Wow.
We're best friends 10 years later. He's such a great human. He's the bastard child of a Filipino priest.
Wow.
He shouldn't be here, but he's here.
Yeah.
He's my angel. Really impactful in my life. He told me the third or fourth day we got together, you should write a song. We should write a song. We should write a song. We should write a song. Every other week, we should write a song. And finally, I remembered one day, I got a book. I have a book drafted. We go see if we can steal some words from the book and make a song. And we did. And then the next Sunday, we started another one. And I was like, dang, I can't even play guitar. And I'm writing songs. Like, this is cool. It's like, this is the best ever. And so I wrote, I think I got 2 or 3 songs. And then I ran out of words. This was like a book idea. I had like 20 pages of chicken scratch I wrote on airplanes that I tucked away 5 years before. So I was like, dang, I got to start writing the book so I can write more songs. Yeah. Because I didn't know how to write music. I knew how to steal words that looked like songs, but I didn't know how to write a song. And so I started writing a book. And this was my Dear God book, Letters to God, where I'm asking God if I figured this out, is this correct? Is that correct? And I'm asking God about love and forgiveness and acceptance and, prayer and mind, and karma and service and hope, faith. So I'm asking I'm writing all these letters, and I got into the book, and the book ultimately led me to my current podcast, and it's really changed. And it gave me, so back to kind of wrap up your question, about 10 years ago, I started the journey. I didn't know where it would go, but I was intentional, and I put myself out there in a way, right? I told people something very stupid in a way, if you look at it from the outside. 52-year-old guy wants to buy a guitar and learn guitar. I mean, it's quite frivolous in a way. Yeah. It's not a normal thing you would encourage. You may not discourage it, but you'd be like, why? Like, who would do that? And I think it was my intentionality of making myself vulnerable, and the universe sending that guy. I would have walked out of that store in about another minute if I didn't meet that guy. And if I didn't meet Alonzo, I wouldn't be doing this. And it's just kind of this sequential thing that happens. You're given these breadcrumbs to tell you you're on the right path, and you get sent the right people when you need them. And for sure, Alonzo put in my path, my guitar teacher, and now confidant and friend and partner and everything else, my buddy. And so that's kind of how I started the journey. And I woke up one day at about 58, and I'm like, what's going to be my third act? All of a sudden I became obsessed with this. I'm going to be 60, and I could see this job running to 60. What do I want to do when I'm 60? I could double down, because my next job is going to be good. Like, I have a feeling like my next job is going to be another banger, because I floated around. I had a killer job, and then I bounced around a little bit, and the market was doing some things, and I knew the next role I had was going to be the banger. And so I started writing the book like a madman, planning my project, and I was ready to get out of corporate. I'd made that commitment, and I wrote a song called Free Man
Mm.
when I decided. And it's really about, your own dreams as a kid and how they become hijacked for life and other people and sacrifices. And when you finally live your own life, you become a free man. And so it's kind of that was my own little song that I wrote. And when I wrote that, I knew I was done. But sure enough, the universe is tricky, man. I had I had made my decision, and I don't know if I had told my boss or not yet, but yeah, that email came with the offer for that job, more money than I ever made, bigger title than I ever had.
Wow.
It was the devil, man. It was absolutely the devil
Wow.
popping up. One more turn, Ken. You can always chase your dreams, but you can't have a corporate job when you're 70. You know.
Yeah.
So
And
I
you know
said
what?
no.
Like you said, one thing I've noticed about God too is like when he puts these a lot of people don't understand that when we feel these desires, these strong desires to go do this or do that, that's usually God putting those desires there.
Mm,
Like with you with the guitar and actually being intentional about that. I believe that that was the starting point of what, God had for you. And
yeah.
because he never reveals the whole plan at one time, he just like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah. This is
it's these
so
breadcrumbs.
annoying. So annoying.
It's the breadcrumbs. It's like, here, take this, and then
Yes.
it can be really scary because it can be uncertain. And you're like, I don't even know what the next steps are. I just know that I'm gonna take this one, and
Yeah.
sometimes, oh man, it can be pretty crazy. And now look at you where you are. You're looking back like, oh my goodness. And another thing too is like sometimes we take these breadcrumbs or take these steps and we expect
Mm.
things to unfold very quickly, and God does not work like that.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting, right? There are these, and I think that is that a little bit. No, it's not intentional testing. It's just the way it is, right? I'll give you one more. I had this, the people you meet, and how big is the master plan?
Mm,
I met somebody I met a glassblower in 2003 in a small village in Indonesia, American guy. And we were like, I had I had a simpatico with that guy, like an absolute brotherhood
mhm.
from the moment I met him. No way I could ever explain it. We were just like, it was like he could be my brother. Can't explain it. Weirdest thing. I bought some glass from him. I tried to kind of I try to like make a business with him. He blows glass and like I carried that on for a couple of years. Silly, didn't go anywhere. And then we kind of just became Facebook buddies for 15 years. And when I had developed a white paper for my project, kind of a small marketing paper, and I gave it to somebody. And this guy, we were talking about it, and he used these words. He said basically, Ken, I'm reading this paper, and I envision you sitting down with your guest with this bespoke jar. And bespoke means custom. It's a British word, like a bespoke suit. It's a
Okay.
very fine tailored. This is a beautiful piece of a suit. It's like a piece of art. So when he said bespoke jar, I mean, I instantly knew what that meant. That meant I called my buddy Ron that I met 20 years ago. And
Wow.
the reason I met him was this purpose. No other. All the other stuff was absolute gibberish. It meant nothing. This was his purpose. I called Ron immediately, got him on Facebook, went to Facebook, found him, called him. He wasn't where I met him.
Mm.
He was in San Francisco. He was living with his mom. He got kicked out of the country he was in because of COVID. He was in a depressed state. He was very unhappy, very unsettled. He was away from his wife. His wife had cancer. She was going through stuff herself, and he was far away, couldn't help her, had no money, to send her. And I called up and it was like he told me his whole story in 15 minutes. And I was like, dude, I got a bunch of money and I want you to blow some glass. Let's get you back to work. Immediately, like the clouds broke, the sun was shining. He was like absolutely fired up. And he was able, I was still in Asia. He was able to make 3 of the jars. So I commissioned him for 4 jars. Mm-hmm. 4 is my number. He made 3, boom, boom, boom. And like magic. And the 4th one, man, got in a fight with one of the owners. A kiln blew up on the next one. COVID restrictions on it. Like he was having the worst time getting the last one done. He couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I was coming home in 2 weeks. And I was like, wait for me. Mm-hmm. And so I flew to San Francisco the day, like 2 days after I got in, and went to see him in San Francisco. And I got to film the last jar being made of him. Wow. And it was a beautiful piece. And it's a great video. It's absolutely fantastic, just showing him blowing the glass. And so I show that to people, they sit down I don't have the one with me, but they sit down in the jars in front of them. And when you see it, you're like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, it's a piece of art. So anyway, it's that. When I realized, like, are you kidding me? Was I really supposed to meet Ron? Is that how this game works? Like you're stacking the cards 20 years in advance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's
so would you end up, how did you end up using the paper? You used the paper. What was that about?
Which paper? The paper. Oh, the white paper. Yeah, the white paper. Yeah, it was mostly because what I'm doing with the jar, I'm traveling to 111 cities. I'm interviewing 444 people with 444 questions in a jar. And that was the concept that was not my idea, by the way.
God.
I don't know where it came. Honestly, I don't know how all these things came together where the podcast was born. I'm still struggling with that. And yeah, so that was the idea. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second, talking about the other piece.
No, it's okay. That is so amazing. What's the name? What have you put a name on that whole project or that?
Yeah, it's called The Jar.
Okay. Yeah.
So as soon, and I mean, it's kind of silly that I called it Project 444 for the longest time. And even when that guy said the jar, all that did for me was it made me think of I have to make glass jars. And it wasn't until I did a month in quarantine. And when I went to the US back during COVID, and then you come back to Asia, and the country I was in, Vietnam, had a silly quarantine thing. I was in a hotel for a month. I came out of the hotel. I got back to my apartment, and I think I had taken a nap, and I woke up and I just sat down at the table. I was like, doom, the jar. It's called The Jar. Of course it's called The Jar. And the jar was born right there.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's crazy because God will birth these major things in us, like at the drop of a dime. And we're like, I don't even know where that came from. Or he'll just like tell you it just out the blue.
It's a real struggle for me because I know I'm living in the apartment. Mm-hmm. I'm working on the book. I'm filling in the blanks. I know I want to travel America, but how all this kind of came together. Dang. a lot of muse. When I wrote the book, the muse is a real thing. Mm-hmm. Being that angel or your guardian angel or whatever it is, but that person on your shoulder that's flowing through you, through your hands and through your, mm-hmm. It's not you anymore, right? You've tapped into something else. I saw a really good, you may not know who Bob Dylan is. Bob Dylan is he would be, as far as a counterculture, American writer. So an American songwriter, a lyricist. And he even said, better to be a word man than a bird man. Meaning your words are more powerful than having a beautiful voice. And I saw an interview of him not long ago, but the interview was very long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was talking about writing, and they were asking about how do you get the inspiration, where do the words come from, and he said, I don't know, not from me. And the guy's like, but you wrote it. He goes, well, it came from my fingers, sure. And then he said, then he gave a quote to he quoted one of his verses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so psychedelic and beautiful. Like the verse is absolutely stunning. It's some of the best poetry ever made.
Wow.
And he looks at the guy and he goes, you think I can do that? You think I can you sit down, you try to write something like that. You cannot.
Wow.
It's like, I cannot write that. That came through me. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see that guy recognize that. So I had a lot of muse help, especially when I wrote the questions. I think the muse had fun. When I had the book done, I had each topic has 4 letters. So I had 48 letters, and I put a letter up on the computer and an Excel spreadsheet on the other. And I'd try to find in the letter a question that would be good for my show.
Oh.
What is it? So what in this letter that I wrote to God about love and self-love being the most, like, for example, the first part of love is self-love. And I talk about that's the most important love. And so what are the questions, what's in here that I can ask a guest as when they pull a jar question? So do you love yourself? What is love? Who do you love? When was the last time somebody said, I love you? When was the last time you said, I love you? And so all these, so just, I'd write 444 questions.
Wow.
I mean, like when you sit down to start that kind of a task, and then you write 40 and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I feel like I birthed twin babies. And I'm only 44 questions, and I'm not even sure any of the 44 are even good, right? I wrote them. I mean, it doesn't mean I probably wrote 600 questions to get 400 that I thought would be good enough for a jar. Yeah.
That is so creative and amazing. I'm telling you, God works mysterious ways.
And this one for me is just wild. And I've had some interesting parts of the journey where I've just kind of gone, well, I saw what you did there. Looking around. Oh, I saw that.
And you know what? It's those moments when I say they're such blessings, because when oh my goodness, I can't believe you just crafted that like that, for that to actually happen. I never would have thought about that. That's genius,
Oh yeah, I saw that. And people, and they're over there going,
yeah, absolutely. And along the journey, sometimes God will place these tasks in our path, or our path on the way to these tasks. And as we complete them, like, some people won't understand it. If you're not actually on a journey, like, you won't understand it, and sometimes we're looked at like we're crazy, and, people say some wild things about us, but you really have to be, like you said, intentional about where you're going in life. Are you accepting the assignment that God has given? Are you really going to walk in your purpose and fulfill what it is that He wants you to do? And once you give that yes, like, you have to be intentional about it, and sometimes He can't ask you to do some crazy things, because sometimes I'm like, God, that does not make any sense. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, but I just think it's crazy.
This is the real thing, right? Like, all right, okay. If that's what I'm doing, I for sure, I was sitting in a hotel room about 16 months ago. I just landed in the US. I was sitting in a hotel room, and I was getting ready to buy a van. And I thought, this is stupid. What am I doing? Like, I could be doing so many more smart things with my money and my time, but this is guaranteed I'm going to be broke at the end of this. I'm going to burn all my money. Let's see what else is going to happen. I'll probably have to get a job again or something. Like, I was going through all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I was going through all the things that could go wrong. And, but you do have it. You got to have some of that trust, right? You just got to have some trust. And I like you coming back to that intentionality and I'd add to that, being intentional and being vulnerable. I think the two things, I think the first two things of vulnerability I did was the key to the universe lighting my path.
Mm.
And, where the harebrained idea for the guitar came, unknown. I mean, it was my third attempt. It's kind of funny. It was my third try, though.
Uh-huh.
So that's also an interesting part of the story. You know, sometimes I don't, how the guitar ended up in my hands twice before. It's interesting. And both times, I lost the way. And I always had that in the back of my mind, for whatever reason. And I love music, and I love singing to music, and I love kind of songs that are around a guitar. So, for me, it felt like an easy thought.
Mm.
But again, it was a silly idea. It was nothing to do with me. I hadn't played musical instruments since eighth grade, since high school.
Mhm.
So,
But a lot of
maybe it
times too,
was.
it'll be just the fact that you're willing to keep going, even through
Yes.
the failures or the messed up tries. The fact that you kept going, like your willingness to try again, that's
Yeah,
major too.
I agree, Asia. I think it does. You can't just take one sign and one step. You've got to honor. I think you have to honor it when you do see it, and when you feel like you're being spoken to. Don't discount it for, if it doesn't work out or it doesn't happen right away. Don't discount it. Stay open minded. Maybe be vulnerable one more time. I like what you do, which is just, all right, God, can we just be a little bit more direct here? Can we have a little bit more open and honest communication? Enough of the breadcrumbs, enough of the
Yeah.
sign, enough about meeting the guy in the trench coat behind the theater at midnight. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Send me an email.
Yeah, something.
Can you send me an
Okay, a
email?
letter or something. Sometimes I'm like, God, you want me to do what? Go where? Or sometimes it's like, okay, he'll have send me somewhere. I'm like, okay, I'm here. Like, what is it? Like, what are
I'm
you
ready.
up to? And he makes it fun though, because it's like you never
For
know. You
sure.
never know what he may have you walk into. And then too, like in the different people's lives that you meet, you get to meet some amazing people along the way.
Yeah.
And you just get to, it's different.
And you'll be a messenger sometimes. I think if you get lucky, you're going to be the messenger.
Hmm.
And I had that chance one time during the journey. Just a bunch of time. I had a good friend from a work friend, a good work friend from Asia. And this individual was highest performing executive I've ever worked with, and a CEO of CEOs of CEOs kind of person, multi-billion dollar company, and hard as a Marine. Hard, soft-hearted, self-described soft-hearted, but nobody ever really believed it, right?
Yeah.
Like he's self-described softy, but no, he's like hard as stone, right? And he lost his daughter to a rare brain cancer,
Wow.
30 years old, 28 years old, and just gone, and died in his arms. He
Wow.
made the trip back. He was in Asia. And, he came back, and man, he worked. I think what he told me was what I found out now. I visited him on my journey. And what he told me was when he came back, when after that happened, he quit. He went home, he went back to office and said, I'm done, start the planning. And so
Mhm.
it took 18 months for him to exit because of his role. But when he was done, he was done. He was done with corporate life. At the peak of corporate career, at 62 years old, at the top of his game. And again, like me, he could have gone to the next job and the next job. He literally could be still working today, making many, many millions a year, like mega millions.
Mhm.
But he quit everything, just him and his wife in North Carolina. And I visited them. And I was there, and I was quite, it was interesting. We went to lunch, and I was in the back seat, and I was presented an image, truly presented an image. Through the two seats was a square almost. And on the other side of that square was the gear shift, and her hand and his hand.
Mhm.
They're 60 years old. They're kind of newlyweds. It's like puppy love. It was like public display of affection kind of stuff. It was like, who does that? Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that's weird. You're 60, you know, you
Yeah.
can't be in love like that. And and they and they are.
Mhm.
And it's the cutest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, by the second day, I was like, I, I hope I hope I can have a love like that. Like, who doesn't want a love like that?
Mhm.
So the day before I left, I brought one of my jars in, and I said, I want you guys to see what I'm doing. I want you to see a jar and pull a question for fun. My buddy pulls a question. Can love be felt through the touch of a hand?
Wow.
I'm like, get out of here. And
Wow.
they look at each other and kind of giggle
Mhm.
because it's their love language,
Mhm.
touch.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, man, that's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of, but that's maybe kind of random, but not. I know it's not random.
Right.
2 days later, I interview a guest, and I have these jars, and I set them on their side, and I put the opening in front of the guest. And so for me, I see the back. And on this guest, the first day back to work after visiting my friend, what's the question on the bottom of the jar facing me? Can love be felt through the touch of a hand?
Wow.
And I'm like, dang. Whoop. And so fast forward to the next interview.
Mhm.
Um, I sit down with the guest and I'm like, you will not believe what happened this last interview. This crazy stuff happened with this question. And she's like, wow, that's a cool story. I'm like, yeah. And so third or fourth question, she gets,
The
can
same
love be
one?
felt through the touch of a hand? And I'm like, all right, well, there's 444 questions.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of unusual for it to be present three times in three scenarios.
Mhm.
She tells a story. This guest tells a story of her mother, um, going through hospice at home, and she passed away of a rare brain cancer. And I wrote the name of the brain cancer down. And when I left the interview, I got in the car and I checked, and I'm like, I, I think that's the same brain cancer
Mhm.
as my friend's daughter.
Yeah.
So I sent him a message and I said, hey, is this the, isn't this the cancer Sally died from? And he said, yes. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I sent him another note and I said, just, love your brother. I just interviewed this person today, and here's what happened. Her mom died of the same cancer as Sally, and she also drew the same question. It's a little, just want to let you know, just want to share with you. And he sent me a note back and said, today's a really hard day. It's Sally's birthday. So to kind of frame that, I was shown a photo of him and his, I was shown an image, presented the image of him and his wife holding hands. Then the card got drawn. Can love be felt to the touch of a hand? And then I was shown that image in the jar facing me, just to be sure in case I was slow. And then to interview somebody whose mother died of a rare brain cancer, and I happened to interview that person on the same day as this guy's daughter, who also died of the same rare brain cancer. I mean, if that's not the daughter, if she's not reaching out through the jar and saying, Dad, I felt your hand. I know you love me.
Wow.
It's not, I mean, that's not that. Those are not random events.
Wow.
There's no amount of, you know, I've played the lottery a lot, and I don't even ever get three numbers on a $10 ticket.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like hitting the lot. That's like hitting the Powerball 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
The odds are unbelievable.
Absolutely. Because you know what? I always say there is no such thing as a coincidence. Like
There's no such thing as a coincidence. Absolutely not.
everything happens on purpose with a purpose. Like isn't it's no such thing as a coincidence. It's no randomness, it's nothing but God. Like, sending a message. That is something else. That's those are the type of ways that he works. You know, what's the odds?
What are the all of that, and all of that had to happen in such a weird, like in a weird. When she said that her mom died of a rare brain cancer, it was like I was so trepidation. Like, can you tell me the name of the cancer? And as soon as she said it, I was like, oh, I'm like 99% sure. And I was like, I was having serious goosebumps in the meeting. I'm like, I feel like she's in the room. I feel like she's trying to tell her father, like
Wow.
he needs to let it go. He's okay. He did a good job.
Yeah.
She knows, you
Yeah.
know.
Wow. So, so are you still traveling with the jar?
I'm on city number. I'm on the 89th city out of
Wow.
111. I just passed. I think I've just done interview 300 on the road, and and I do these in people's homes. I
Wow.
go to people's houses and we sit down at their kitchen table or whatever table they've got. Sometimes I sit on the floor. You know,
Hmm.
I we don't we don't curate the interview. So I've been to every kind of place you could imagine. I've been to halfway houses, flop houses, heroin places, recovery places, mansions.
Wow.
You
How
know,
do you find the people to interview? Do they just come to you? Do you just stop people and ask them?
Facebook.
Really?
It's like the master. Just put a little bit of a paid ad.
Hmm.
I do a little bit of LinkedIn
Hmm.
sometimes. Like today, I was short some guests here in Santa Fe, so
Hmm.
I put my own LinkedIn ad in. Not ad, but I just put a post. I have a
Hmm.
number of followers, and I got a guest right
Wow.
away, right away, just
That's
reaching out.
amazing.
I do pick up people in bars, as I like to say. I have
Uh-huh.
a I have a really clever business card.
Okay.
No, we're not going to be able to get a good visual. Oh, a little bit. Oh, it's maybe I'll bring it the same as my face. No, oh, it'll never work. Um, if I unless I take off my blur.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've got here we go. So I have a clever thing, and it's on one side it's a question.
Okay.
So it's a business card. It says the
Ooh.
jar, and this question is, when was the last time your heart was broken?
Wow.
And on the back is my business. So you can find the jar and everything about us. So, example like, when was the last time your heart was broken? How can we help people open their hearts? Is there someone to whom you should apologize? That one person you can't help but think you did wrong?
Wow.
What truth have you found in life through prayer?
Hmm.
So, like you said, these are all, and the fun part about it, Asia, is I think two things I recognized. I was not an interviewer.
Hmm.
I don't have any professional experience. I'm not a media person, and I'm honestly, I'm not quick. I'm quick witted in some ways,
Hmm.
but in my own head, if I'm spinning it, it's fine. If
Yeah.
I'm listening to somebody and spinning a quick and be asking questions, I didn't feel I was very good. I didn't think I was going to be. I thought I could become a good interviewer, but I was not going to be a good interviewer in the beginning. And the other one was how to get into a deep conversation with somebody, because how to get into that deep part, drag people into the deep waters like you. I mean, it's like, how do you get into the good heavy questions without saying, hi and how are you? And I get to know you before I ask you, how many times have you murdered people? How long before I can ask the question everybody wants to know?
Yeah.
And and I thought these questions in the jar was a clever way to do it, because I don't ask the question,
That's real good.
and it's your question,
Yep.
and you pulled it.
Yep.
Now I might have written it. Well, actually, I
Yeah.
didn't write it. The muse wrote it, so I'm totally innocent. I was just acting on the muse's instructions, but it's your own question, and so the questions can be heavy. The first question, I call it insta regret. because
Oh,
everybody's all excited. I'm on a podcast and the jar, and I got headphones on, and oh, get it. And then there's this beautiful jar, and
yeah,
they reach your hand in there, and then
yeah.
they get this, and then they get that question, like this first question, they're like, and their face is so priceless. The first question, because they're like, oh my goodness, did I sign up for this? It's like, is it really an hour?
All right. How many
Uh,
questions does each person pull?
yeah, they get about, on average, about 20.
Okay.
Right around 20, 22 maybe seems to be the average. And I've had, people 30, 40, the
Yeah.
more they kind of, they're a little bit more, they don't go as deep into a question, or they may not trigger, kind of a story. I had taken a long break for a while and around Christmas, and I was pretty worried. I was having some trepidation coming back. I was like, have I lost it? Will
Mm-hmm.
the joy, I was afraid the joy would be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm also, when I'm across a guest and we're set up and we're ready to start recording, I'm excited because
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to come up, right? And I thought, man, am I going to lose it? If I lost that curiosity
Yeah.
and the two things I promised myself I needed to do, to be grateful and to stay curious.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't enjoy myself, and I wouldn't be a good host. And
Yeah.
if I lost that, I should quit.
Yeah.
And I was afraid. I was having a little bit of a come to Jesus moment. And I was like, man, I hope when this thing starts, I hope I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got sent the best guest.
Yeah.
Six questions he got through. The first question was, what's the color of your heart?
Wow.
And he looked, and he said, wow. And he's like, that's profound. He set the card down. He looked at me like right in my eyes across the table. He goes, let's talk about color. And he went on a 20-minute side road about
Mm-hmm.
color and
Wow.
light. And man, and he brought that whole thing back to talk about how it impacts a heart and how it's related to a heart. And when he finished the thing, I think I was kind of trying to pull my chin back into my mouth and just kind of going, oh, I'm
Mm.
so back. I love this job. Like, I just spent
Yeah.
20 minutes. I just got educated. I mean, I just got literally an education of a very smart individual, like a very intelligent person, about color and heart and, emotion and
Mm.
energy and vibration. Wow. I was like, that's the best question ever. Uh,
Wow. So one last question before we close this up. So
mm,
if people want to tune into your content or like follow you
yeah.
on platform, reach out to you, how can they reach you outside of this?
It's really easy, Asia. Just go to thejar.live. So
Okay.
it's that www thing and thejar.live. And or just Google the jar podcast. And
Okay.
and maybe you have to add my name. I don't know, but we got a pretty decent, because we got so much content up there. We got a pretty decent traction.
That's amazing. I'm going to follow it. I can
Yeah.
listen to some of this.
If any of your guests or any of your listeners are in Arizona, California, or Nevada, or Oregon, so basically the Southwest, and then Cali, those are the states that I'm in. Traveling to. I'm in New Mexico now, so I don't know when this will be released, but probably by the time I'm, in Arizona and California. So anybody in California, for sure, if you're listening, follow the jar, send me a message, tell me you heard my story on the podcast, and I'd love to sit down with you. And then the guest and I can get back on Asia's show to talk about it.
You sure can. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
I might have to come out to Cali to check you out. I've never been to
Yeah.
Cali. I've never been out there.
Oh yeah. No, it's good. It's spots are less good than other spots, but it's still a great. I love California still. It's a beautiful state. It's really a beautiful state.
So for somebody like being a first time visitor, where would you recommend?
It depends what you like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depends what you like. And I think everybody will have some idea of what California means to them.
Hmm.
Some people it's the beach life. Some people it's kind of like to go see the Hollywood thing, the celebrity thing. Some people it might be the weather, right? Or take in some of the culture, the food culture, the Spanish, the Hispanic food culture and that part. Or I mean, we've got great, there's a lot of places have got great parks and like amusement parks, but California's got some good ones. And then also nature, man. Mountains are cool, the desert's cool. So I think it would depend, if which one of those things are you, you want to come out and you want to hang at the beach, or you want to see museums, or you want to, take in a baseball game at Dodgers Stadium, or
Um,
you want to, you're gonna go
I'm not
see.
really, I'm not really concerned with the whole Hollywood thing. I like nice views, good food, um, and anywhere I can see and learn something new. Like I love new scenery,
Yeah,
things like that.
I think San Francisco still to me in the summertime, all the way up till September, even in the winter, because it's still warmer than the East Coast in the north. San Fran, there's some the homelessness is still there, but you're seeing that everywhere. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're not going to see that in another city. But San
Mhm.
Fran's still beautiful. I mean, you
Really?
can't. Yeah, it's a cool city, and the food's still great.
Wow.
Um, I love that part. San Fran's beautiful, and northern San Francisco, like into Napa and everything else. If you have fancy wine and food, that's
Mhm.
beautiful up there. The redwoods,
Really?
that coastal area,
Uh-huh.
awesome,
Oh
awesome.
yeah. I'm gonna have to
And you
check
can
it
do all
out.
the city stuff in San Francisco and just go over the bridge, and you're in the countryside.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check it out.
yeah.
It's real
Well, I'll
soon.
be there. I'll be there around November.
Okay. And man, okay. And how
You
long are
can
you gonna be there for?
uh on my the good news is I've just finished my whole plan for the year, all the way
Okay.
till about December. So if you do go on the jar.live website,
Okay.
there is a where's Ken or follow Ken
Okay.
link,
Okay.
and I've mapped out my trip on a thing called Road Trippers, and you just click on the link and you can see where I've been, what dates, where I'm at now, and you can follow the rest of the journey. Every 5 days I change cities.
Oh wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, I know
Yeah,
that.
it's a thing right now, Asia. It's a crazy life I'm living, and like I said, if I find the person who gave me this idea, they are in real trouble.
You know what? At least you're living at least you're living like a free life and you're not tied down and
Yeah.
you're actually happy meeting new people, seeing new things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing.
I don't think I have any regrets. Right? I think when I do die,
Mm-hmm.
I won't be one of those people saying I wish I'd
Mm-hmm.
not taken that last corporate job. I might have some other wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think I'll regret doing this. And I don't think, and I think I will have done that one crazy thing that people wish they had the courage to do.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I'd encourage anybody, follow those signs, follow your heart,
Mm-hmm.
be vulnerable and be intentional. That invulnerability and intentionality, for me, looking back, seems to have unlocked the magic sauce of the universe.
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much again. Like you are more than welcome anytime to come back
Thanks, Asia.
and join us. Thank you everyone that tuned in and listened or watched. Please head over to www.greatergrowthllc.com and support us on the t-shirt and hoodie store. You can also head over to Amazon and purchase
Hmm.
a copy of Back in My Day by Asia Wilson. Um, and until next time.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.